Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order on September 3rd, 2024. There will be an executive session following our meeting tonight. It's the public comment period. At this time, residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Forest Hills will be permitted to address council on any issue. You may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. Citizens must use the microphone at the speaker stand, clearly state name and address for the record, and keep comments brief and to the point. Please spell the name for the record. Note that we do not take minutes for committee meetings. Also note that there will be no decision tonight. These will be discussed later at the appropriate committee. Is there anyone that wants to speak?
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Belmont. I live on 237 Avenue A.
Would you
Last name
start?
is
Yeah.
Belmonte. The reason I'm here, my neighbor Gail Potter has a petition. She'd like to see we all would like to see the steps from Avenue B going down to Ardmore Boulevard restored. We see.
Please speak into the mic. Sorry, we can't hear you. If you
We see people using the steps even though they're not really should be. People don't have cars and they need from point A to point B. So who can I give this petition to?
manager, please, Mr. Abrams.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, thank you. I'd like to change the order of tonight's meeting rather than start with Mr. Watkins isn't here.
He showed up.
Oh, hi. Thank you. You snuck in behind me. I didn't see you come in. Well, I'd still like to change the order just because by the time we get to ops and policy, everyone's tired. Would you mind then, please, anyone, if we let Mr. Lawrence go first? Okay, thank you.
Microphone. Any manager's update, please?
My report is on file. Council has it if there are any questions. But the long and short is we're moving forward as we've been discussing with all the various projects, especially budgeting, some IT and telecom ISP issues.
Thank you. All right. What we're going to do, let me pass these along. I think you all have these copies, but just in case. At Cal, about a month ago, our solicitor provided you with this document. It is his attempt or work to address the borough room use policy and particularly address the specifics of the use of this space behind you over there. Does everyone have a copy? Right. What I'd like to do is review a portion of this policy tonight so that we can begin to move forward on this. We've been working on it for a good while and it's time to get moving. My goal is tonight to not dot every I, cross every T, to wordsmith it, but to accept a baseline policy that we can use to give to our solicitor to move forward and not only address the use of that room, but then for him to fold that into our entire borough room policy that addresses the Westinghouse Lodge as well as the pool lodge. Okay, that's my goal tonight. Now, as you might remember quickly, and he gives you legal background on page 1 there, this arose because the policy we had left us vulnerable to some potential violations of the equal protection law or on the U.S. Constitution as well as the Pennsylvania State Constitution. Unintended error on our part, but nonetheless it was there and we do have to address it. It's a somewhat complex issue that a lot of people have feelings about. So what I'd like to do is tell you that the solicitor did the best he could to find what he defines as a middle ground policy that can make sure we're not in violation of the Equal Protection Clause, meet the interest of at least some of those who would like to use borough property to meet at no fee, and yet stay safe here, not expose the borough to any litigation. So what I would like to do quickly, if you go to page 2, let me run through quickly. I don't want to bore you, but I would like to make sure everyone understands or my perception of how this goes. I'm going to run through the policy, and I'm also going to mention, as I go through it, the suggestions that I received from the council members from my request for input about a month ago. All right. And I'll just do that. And then at that point, we can ask for statements about this policy from those present. In particular, page 3, his middle ground policy, he begins with public buildings. And this is things like the Westinghouse Lodge, all the public buildings. Section E addresses the use of that room across from you or behind you. The building overflow room, the council meeting room, and a small conference room. The proposal is that these will be available for the use of the borough staff, the mayor, the borough council, council's appointed committees, councils and commissions. I suggest an additional phrasing or groups approved by ordinance, which basically includes that. What this would mean in a sense is that is an overflow room or a space for the use of the council, for the mayor, for the commissions and committees that council has approved and created, again, by ordinance, and anything that flows down directly from their council-related business. Okay? Section 2 goes into detail about employees and authorized organizations who will use it. I did, one person did suggest we might want to state explicitly because it mentions borough employees and council members are employees. We may want to consider adding that council members cannot use it for any non-borough related business. Okay. And I think it's implied in there, but nonetheless. E3, E, F, G, H all go into the specifics of when you can help scheduling would proceed, clean up your mess after you leave, stuff like that. And the access is E4. Now, the thing addressing tonight, the specific issue of how we handle the use, the changes in the use of the room over there. What the solicitor is saying is a legal solution to meet some of the questions and requirements is in F. The Westinghouse and pool lodges may be used up to 12 times per calendar year for meetings I add a correction under elected officials for clarity. That's a very vague phrase, what elected official is. Those 2 lodges may be used up to 12 times per calendar year for meetings by borough-based organizations whose members are elected periodically during municipal elections. So there's a distinction between us elected. All right. Now, in addition, there is a qualification there. These cannot be used for fundraisers, meet and greets. Meet and greets usually mean we're getting together to meet a particular party's nominee. Fundraisers, those things will be excluded. All right, E1, E2, E3. Again, it's, the specifics of how you would use it, schedule it, etc. Now, let me go through the other sections that are the recommendations I had from from input. Again, back to E1, the borough buildings overflow room. a recommendation is to change the label for the identification of that room as the council chamber annex, which implies it is, you know, it is an annex to this room. It's one of its primary uses was when we get a big crowd in there, we open those doors and it expands the council chambers. Second observation in E1, manager and or the manager's designee, it was suggested that may lack some clarity. These are issues that are important to clarify, but I'm not sure necessarily they're substantive in the what this document is proposing. I did mention maybe in E2, we might address clarify that it excludes non-borough business by employees. What else? Oh, and section F1 or section F introduction, a question was asked or a statement was made, I would say, that is 12 a somewhat arbitrary number. Again, that's something that is not substantive to our policy to the use of that room, but is of issue to be addressed. I believe that is the only input or statements I have from any members of council, the mayor or the manager. So at this point, and be patient with me because I'm going to write this down. If we could go down the row here, beginning with Mr. Bacon, do you have any statements about this policy?
I do. I feel like we are still being unnecessarily restrictive on the room over there. I appreciated the community room nature of it before, and I think while we need to cover ourselves, I think we could be adopting a more open standpoint to it. My other concerns are just that.
If I may take a moment to make sure I'm getting this right, you're suggesting there's a broader use for that room other than what's listed in this policy.
I would like to see us go in that direction, but I recognize that I think, on the extreme end of council's spectrum of opinions on that. So
Okay, but no, that's what I want to get
Yeah.
clear. You'd like to see the categories perhaps of those who use the room expanded a bit. Would
that's
that-
correct.
Okay, thank you. And give me a minute to write that down. And the second point?
My second point was just that some of these terminologies, such as fundraisers, meet and greets and parties, et cetera, if I'm speaking from the representation of the constituents who are elected members of the Democratic Committee who have a lot of concerns over this, I feel like we're going to have, we'll need to address the issues where those terms could overlap with their just regular meetings and use of business that one could interpret as some of those events if choosing to do so, or could interpret as not those if choosing to do so.
Okay, so you'd suggest a little more legal clarity on those terms? Thank
That's
you.
correct.
Be patient, I have to write this. My handwriting's terrible. Be able to read it in an hour. Mr. Baoki.
I don't have anything additional to add. Basically, everything you identified, I agree with, especially the statement about the elected members.
Thank you. Mr. DeCrosta.
Feel like we've reached a reasonable compromise here, and we're still allowed to host certain organizations and other buildings at no charge, which I think was the end goal here.
Okay.
Thanks for all your work on this.
Thanks. President Martin.
Agree with what you've proposed, and thank you for all your hard work on this.
Mr. Erpeldinger.
I kind of agree with Mr. Bacon, but I would like to add a little bit more to it. I was present when council designed that building, and it was called community room for a reason. It was designed actually to be an annex to the council chamber if we need a big meeting. But remember, it was supposed to replace the senior rec. So seniors were supposed to meet here on a regular basis playing card. COVID happened, it never happened. But it was designed as a community room. And there's even an amendment in the old policy where it explicitly says the Forest Hills Democratic Committee will meet here on a regular basis. And I'm open to open up to any political party elected committee, which I think is fair enough to address the concerns of some people here have. But we used our old council chamber in the same kind of manners, like the Democratic Committee was meeting there as well, probably for decades. The borough never got sued. So I just don't understand that urgency that people avoid about getting sued. I just don't get it. And what I also don't get is, the compromise is to move the Democratic Committee to the Westinghouse Lodge, which is probably a good compromise. But again, I don't understand what's the difference between the lodge and this community room. Why can't they meet here? But I don't know. I'm giving up. I made my point. And I guess it looks like Mr. Bacon and I am the only one who would like to open it up more. So there's no majority to change it. So I guess I'm okay with the compromise.
All right, thank you. Thanks for everyone's input. Like I said, we don't have to,
Mr. Watkins
oh, I'm sorry.
came in so quiet.
Sorry to sneak in, I don't see you. Oh, man, I'm going to hell.
I
I'm gonna
think,
get beat up in the parking lot tonight. I can see it now. Sir.
I think that it's a reasonable compromise. I just wanted to confirm that there would not be any charge for these particular groups if they met in the lodge.
That is my understanding. That's my
That's my, because I tried to set up a meeting before and I was told that there would be a charge for that. So I think that that's a fair resolution. And I do think that even though we haven't been sued, things have changed a lot in the last 4, 8, 10 years. We are more divided than ever, and some parties are sue happy. They are more than willing to go out of the way, and I see no reason why the borough should incur tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees for an unnecessary lawsuit.
Okay. All right. I appreciate everyone's input, and I also appreciate that they're very sincere and legitimate concerns about a policy like this. What I would propose is that we ask the solicitor to take what we have, the suggestions that I've received so far in terms of wording, and to clean this up and use it as the baseline to then go ahead and rebuild the entire policy that addresses all of the public spaces, Westinghouse Lodge, that space, and the pool lodge. Do I have an okay to do that?
Yes.
I agree.
Yes,
I really appreciate your time.
Can I ask one clarification question? What's the timeline on that? We have an election coming up in November, as you probably know, and they meet, I think now almost like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So are they allowed to, obviously it's our intent for council, the Democratic Committee is able to meet there.
Sure.
Can we give them a provisional permit until that, because that will take time?
I'm gonna ask the solicitor if we can't see if he can clean this up by Cal. And if we can clean this up by Cal, and I can't promise that, but if we can clean that up by Cal, we can approve it in the business meeting. And I think, I don't want to speak for the attorney, but I think if we can come to conclusion next week in Cal, that would count for the way we do some other things when we agree to spend money. I think I can't ask for you guys have to say this, but I think we could give them a provisional approval next Tuesday night. Yeah, Mr. Bacon.
Sorry, I wish I properly thanked you for putting this together earlier. I don't think I added that positive note, but I also want to say, I think this policy does give us some very nice new opportunities as elected officials to potentially have open meetings for community feedback on, I don't know of anything in mind right now, but if there's, some sort of community outreach and feedback session that we wanted to do in one of these lodges, I feel like this policy kind of would formalize and enable that in a very positive way for just governance feedback. So I hope I'm interpreting that in the correct way. And I think that's a very positive gain from having this policy. So thank you.
Thank you for the comments. And yes, you're interpreting it in the right way. Mr.
Mr.
Dawson.
Lawrence, I would just try to urge Mr. Corbel to, get this done for us if at all possible, because people have been pretty patient.
I know, I understand. I understand and I agree. Yeah.
I actually have one positive comment. I noticed some of the burden shifted from council to the manager, which I think is a good idea. Like scheduling and all that kind of stuff. There are like a bunch of line items where we changed council to manager. I think it's a good idea.
My guess is the manager agrees with you.
All the changes that you're looking at were made by Mr. Corbel.
Okay, we're done with that. Is there anything else under ops and policies tonight from anyone? Report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We will now resume the regular schedule for the meeting. Mr. Watkins, are you ready for Public Works, please?
Yes, we are ready for Public Works, and Public Works would like to begin with the manager's update.
I do not have any specific updates at this time.
Specific updates, thank you very much, Mr. Next, we will go to the engineer's report.
Yes, we did provide our report. Attached to the report was a lengthy PowerPoint on MS4s. That's provided yearly to council. And if council has any questions on that, I would ask at the regular meeting that we have an item on the agenda, just that we can publicly discuss MS4s and answer any questions from council at that time. It is a requirement of your permit that we have a public item on one of your agendas yearly, and your annual report is due at the end of September. So we wanted to make sure we take care of that at your regular meeting in September here. So, and I'm going to ask Dalton, who's with me tonight, to give you a quick update on the construction projects and where we're at with the roads and so forth.
Apologies, he caught me off guard there. So with regards to the construction projects, so for the projects that were awarded last month, which would be Ashley Court, Ardmore Boulevard, and Cheryl Lane, those award letters have gone out. We actually just received some of the documents back regarding Ashley Court. So that pre-construction meeting should be scheduled here soon. And we anticipate that the documents necessary for the other two projects should be back soon as well. So pre-construction meetings, I would anticipate, are going to be scheduled and held this month. With regards to our current construction project for the 2024 roads, so the roads that have been completed so far include Clover Alley, Rustic Alley, Service Road number 2, and Trenton Avenue. Paving is anticipated to be completed tomorrow for the remainder of Clover Alley, the apron of Forest Hills Road, and the area of Braddock that was added as a change order. That paving is anticipated to be completed tomorrow, and then they will need to do sealing and thermoplastic. So we anticipate that that contract should be ready for walkthrough sometime around mid-month to potentially close out in October. We've also been working further on the design work for the STEPS project. We anticipate that that project will be brought forward to review again with the borough and review with the grant committee for bid later this year. And then the regionalization project, the design work on that is mostly complete. We anticipate that we'll probably be able to talk about that one next month for a bid schedule.
Thanks, Dalton. One additional item on roads for 2025. We did update the road list that we provided last year. We're going to meet with Seth to go over some priorities there, and we'll be bringing that forward during your budget process. We do recommend this year that we include the list of roads within the budget that the council approves with the budget, so that when we hit 2025, we're ready to go with an early bid, the same as what you did this past year. That way council has time to think about it through the budgeting process. We are also updating the capital budget items right now per Seth's request, because you have had a lot of projects completed in 2024. And we're looking at the projects that remain on the list for 2025. Any questions on our report for the Public Works? Yes.
I just wanted to comment on the roads for 2025. We only got to see the list a few hours ago, so we may be contacting you with just some different change requests, just like we did for this year.
Yes. Yeah.
The total remains the same, the 315, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To say, on the way here, I drove on Service Road 2, and it was a lot nicer.
We hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
We don't take public comment now.
Any other questions from council? And that's our report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, following the engineer's report, it is time for the foreman's report.
Hello, sorry. Scare you guys there. So you all have my report. I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. Are there any questions? We are moving along and some projects are coming up, but if you want to scan through that real quick and I can answer questions.
So we started leaf truck maintenance. Does everything appear ready for a successful start?
Not yet. No, we actually, there's an issue with the computer. We're working that out. We're in contact with ODB, the manufacturer. Just trying to iron it out. It has bugs every year. We just got to figure it out. It'll be ready though.
I see here you installed speed bumps on Cascade.
Yes, in front of the park.
Oh, that's Bevington. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And, yes, well, Cascade Road,
Oh, no. Okay. That is
Yeah.
Cascade along there.
yes,
Okay.
that's Cascade.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I know the gentleman who was here earlier about Cascade is on the other end of Cascade.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure if there was any discussion on temporary ones on the other part of the road.
Not that I know of. We're just currently working on front of parks at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Lines, we're supposed to have some details on the effectiveness of the speed bumps that were previously installed.
So we have been moving the signs. I haven't got the sign back on Fairfax because I'm trying to keep the process of the installation on track and we only have 2 signs to record data. So one is going on Sherwood next. And then we can move the sign that's on Cascade back to Fairfax to get the post data. But I believe on Cascade, there's before and after data for that one. Chuck would know better because he has the capability to see it, not me.
I haven't seen the data yet, but I think we have it in the machine. So
Okay.
once we download it, we'll have that. But again, as you described, we want to get to both ends of it. And we only have the 2 machines to do that. So we're trying to move them around as we can, get as Public Works does what they do. We're going to have what we need to do on the other side of that as soon as we can. And we'll provide that.
Yes, generally, we have a report on the deer pickup,
Yes.
and it's not in here. I know you're collecting that information.
Yes, I have it. If you want me to start adding it to
We should have
I
it
can.
as part
That's
of
no
the
problem.
Report.
You want specific deer location and
No,
quantity or
just-
just quantity?
We just need numbers.
Okay. Next month I will have that.
No other questions?
Okay.
Complete.
Thanks.
Okay, the committee has no new business. The one thing I do want to say is that for everyone on council, if you have questions about the MS4 report so that I can get that in, please email me your questions and I can refer that to Mr. Brett.
Did we receive that by email? I haven't seen, just today? Oh, okay.
This includes Public Works.
Mr. Watkins. Moving on then, Mr. Bacon to Borough Property.
Thank you, President Martin. May we have the manager's update, please?
At this point, working with LSSE to put together the final specs to put out for bid for the acoustic renovations for these rooms to create a little more sound barrier between the library, overflow annex room and council chambers. That should be coming up shortly.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Like, it's a substantial amount of money, and I see the point between the library and that, whatever we call it, annex now. But now we're actually using that room even less frequently. I don't see a point that we have a meeting in here and a meeting in that room. So I don't see a point why we should update that thing above us, because there's no noise. There's a library and that room I can see, but not this wall.
The sound actually carries into the business offices as well. So if there's no barrier along here, it does carry through. If we don't block off this area on this side, it carries through into the business
Wall is
offices.
solid.
Travels through the ductwork and the other pieces. There are other aspects that run through the entire building that are open. They're open for the entirety.
Can we at least get quotes for both, like option A and option B, just to look at it? Because again, if it costs us $40,000 and that room will rarely be used going forward, so I don't know, I wonder why we need to pay $40,000 for a room we're not going to use anymore, at least very frequently.
I agree with having multiple options on, we can do it. And we can do some sort of objective study or example or something to support, but I think council would like to have multiple bid options on that. Mr. DeCrassa, or
Yeah, I kind of agree with Marcus. I don't really I mean, if it's going through ductwork, it's still gonna go through ductwork, whether or not that wall is closed up. I thought we were doing this, to stop noise for the library and from the library. So just having some multiple options, I think, would be helpful in us understanding the aspects of all of this.
Mr. Abrams?
Just to clarify, ductwork is one piece, but as I said, there are open areas that run the entire length of the building. I don't know if council's aware of that. Yes, that runs open the entire length. So sound does absolutely still travel and move through. So, and obviously for activities that do happen during the day, such as the library, that does impact us in the business office. So I have no problem, and obviously we will get multiple bids there. But I do believe there is business reason, especially if we're going to mobilize once, to get it done correctly.
Thank you. I think most of our concerns were just collective sticker shock of the previous bid that we
I
saw.
agree.
Any further comments or discussion on that item? No. Right, I do not see Mr. Reamer here. Mr. Abrams, do you have anything from the rec board that you're aware of?
I do not. I know they are meeting tomorrow, so their meeting usually happens before ours.
I will add that as attending the final day of the pool and the dog swim, it was very well attended, impressively so, I thought, and highly recommend that anyone who wishes to just spectate that in the future consider doing so.
If I may, I will add that Mr. Reamer did come in quite pleased. I believe we had about 50 dogs, which is more than we've ever had.
We have the engineers report, please.
Yes, the only update this evening is final punch lists were sent out to all the contractors on the lodge project, and they're completing items as we go. We will lean on them because it's the hardest part of the project is to get the last few items completed from each contractor. So, but we gave them a deadline of the 11th. So I would think over the next 2 weeks, everything ought to be wrapped up. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I don't believe we have any foreman report for this, correct? No, okay. All right, moving on to number 4 on the agenda, the Tree and Shrub Committee prepared a memo that is requesting a hazard tree assessment by Orhut under their contract. This would be a very quick, just cursory examination of trees for any particularly high hazard trees so that they may be addressed immediately. I believe everyone got that email forwarded. Does anyone on council have any concerns or questions? Or are we comfortable with moving forward with that hazard tree assessment? Looks like all positives around. Thank you. There's also a Tree and Shrub Committee frequently asked questions draft. Does anyone have any concerns or questions about that at this time? I'd like to thank Mr. Hybach for being present and ready to answer any questions on that. It looks like we will be done unless anyone else has any new business for borough property. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on then to public safety, is LSSE okay? You can take off now, right? We said that after, unless, did you want them for public safety?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's just that there's a long drive home for some and, you know, they don't want to sit and listen to us anymore, right? What? Oh, Public Works too. Thank you, Mike. Sorry. Moving on to public safety, Mr. Bioki.
Thank you, President Martin. Is there a manager's update?
There is not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now for the chief's report for, we have written reports, but if there's anything additional, Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, I know that I provide a report and specifically one to the public, and if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see parking tags and state citations, and you'll see that this particular month, there were 86 state citations and 46 parking tags. That may be higher than usual because we've received so much money from the state to go out and do these aggressive drivers, DUI, and the most recent one where we do the intersections where people cross. And we just had another one of those details, and we stopped a few people and stopped a few cars and gave some citations to them for interrupting people while crossing the street. So again, I think it's important to say that people pay attention when they're crossing. They should be crossing at the proper time when they see the lights for them to do that. And the vehicles that are driving down the road, when they do see somebody in a crosswalk, they are required to stop. So again, we've been able to enforce that a little with this additional money because we can actually put officers out there to just sit there and watch that. So I think it's a kind of important one because we like to think that pedestrian safety out there should be one of our primary goals because let's face it, that's a life. Cars can be fixed, people, well, not always. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chief Colella.
Evening, everybody. Thank you. Early in the month for me to get a report done, I'll have it for you for next week. But in the month of August, we had 39 calls. 31 days, 39 calls for the month of August. That puts us August 31st, we're at 330 calls for the year. Still keeping busy. We got starting the truck maintenance. Now the first truck went out for pump test and inspections. So that'll be ongoing for the next 2 weeks. Other than that, we had a last Monday, if you weren't aware, we had a cat rescue. We had to go in a storm sewer and rescue a cat that was missing for 3 or 4 days. They called us at the station on Monday night and we went and spent about 2-3 hours up there fishing this cat out of the storm sewer, and it worked out. The cat's home and it was all safe and good. So thank you.
Thank you. And committee business. First item is I would like to move forward with the purchase of a traffic camera system. This is an item that was added to our budget for this year. These are the cameras that go up on the traffic signals. They have a license plate reader with them. One of the benefits from doing that, aside from enforcement, is there have been a number of incidents where cars have severely damaged the traffic controls, hit and run, and we've never been able to recoup that money. The replacement costs for those is quite high. It can run up to $165,000 depending on the location, but generally it's around $135,000 to do that. Let me finish. The cost for the camera system is around $15,000 per location. There are some funds that Chief Williams described that would be coming from the county, but it would only cover one location. And this is we had allocated potentially $30,000 for doing 2 locations for 2024, 3 in 2025, and 2 more in 2026. So what I'm requesting, if there's no objection, is to move that for a vote to the business meeting. Mr. Bacon.
I just want to make sure that you clarified for those who weren't familiar with this, the $135,000 where it's talking about the traffic control systems, the big boxes next to the traffic lights, not the cameras.
Chief Williams, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I originally had met with the DA's representative about this, and they seemed pretty confident that we probably could get one from the Yost and Ardmore intersection. We had asked for 2 other additional ones to go, one at Braddock and Ardmore and one at Morrow and Ardmore. Now, I don't know if the DA is going to be willing to give us the full amount for those other 2. I'm hoping to be able to find some additional funding from other areas, let's say, and I know if the borough can provide some money, there's also a maintenance fee that goes with this that we'll have to pay on a yearly basis. But again, there's a lot of benefits to this. It does help us to deal with bigger crimes where, and I think I spoke about this at the last meeting about how we can track vehicles that are involved in not just crimes where it comes down to robberies, but things where children are taken and other situations, as Mr. Baiocchi had spoken about, where we get substantial damage from a car. We could see that on a camera later and have a license plate reader give us the license plate of that damaged car so we could track it back and determine if they did destroy our very expensive traffic boxes as we have had in the past. Again, I think this is probably a good investment. Again, I'd like to be able to get more funding for it so that our money isn't the money that has to be spent, and we may be able to find other funds to manage the situation. I have asked for, when the DA's representative was here, I've asked for the pricing for all 3 of those intersections so that we would at least have a baseline to know exactly what the cost would be. And he did say that if we could find that funding, they may be willing to pay a portion of that from the DA's office if we're willing to throw some that way as well. So again, there's a lot of unanswered questions here about the dollar value, but if we have money available to say we're going to do something with it, I think they'd be more apt to say, well, we'll be able to do it.
You said 15 for this year?
30,000 for this year.
30.
To do two locations. If we can get the county to kick in, that would get us 3, which would mean then the following year we would not need to spend as much.
My goal would be to have them pay for everything or find some other source to get the money for this. So in the end, maybe we wouldn't have to, but if, again, I haven't gotten the pricing on this from the people that do this work. And once we have that, we know exactly what the dollar value is. I can tell you that the dollar value that we're speaking of is probably not going to cover all of that. But again, I think we may be able to find some other funding here.
Just so you know, the numbers that I used, they were based on estimates that I obtained from a company that is doing the installation.
Okay.
So unless they've changed for, this year, they've increased the pricing.
I only hope that you are correct. because
Yes, I do too.
That'd be great.
The question?
Yeah, just want to clarify, at this time, we're just doing the research, how much money we actually end up have to pay, how many systems we get paid, how many systems we have to pay. But it's not money we have in 2024. I think it would be for 2025.
Well, we budgeted in 2024, as we normally do, for putting in 2 systems. We approved that in the budget. Would be in the capital budget.
Our capital budget is bigger than what we have money available, so that's portion. But what's the timeline anyway? I don't think, the year is kind of running short. I don't think we will actually be able to spend it this year anyway. So I just want to make sure we're doing our research. I don't want to slow that down.
Well, we did our research. The research is that it's going to cost at least $15,000 per location. And if we don't, we've been talking about doing this. It'll only take one accident to knock out a whole traffic system, and it'll cost us $135,000 versus spending $15,000 or $30,000.
Our manager is just looking, I don't think it's in what, maybe I'm wrong.
I'm looking through the approved budget. It is, unless there's a specific line item that wasn't detailed as to what it is, there is nothing in the actual budget the council approved for this.
Well, it should have been, it could have been under police or borough property.
I'm looking under police. There is no actual property category in the budget.
Well, then we should check with our former borough manager to find out where he put it, because that was supposedly approved. So I guess we'll have to wait until next meeting to make sure.
I want to clarify my point. I think it's a good idea, and we should move ahead with researching and trying to get external money. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just think it's not in the budget for this year. And next year, there are only like 4 months left anyway, so.
Let's find out whether it's in the budget or not, and then let's see what we can do with the county. Okay, next item is.
Can I ask one
yeah,
more question?
I'm sorry.
If the DA's office would come back to me and ask if the borough would be willing to put more money into a project like this, could I tell them they probably would agree to that?
Yes.
At least if I could tell them that, they may be more apt to say, okay, well, we'll give you the 50% on maybe the other ones. I'm just looking for ways to get them to cooperate with us and give us as much as they possibly can.
Yes.
Just kind of like the body camera thing, like just whatever we can get, I'd like to get from them.
Yeah,
On the front
just to
side.
clarify.
If I can tell them that we had talked about this and there was money that we are basically allocating for this job that we could have available, I think they'd say, okay, because then it wouldn't be as though I'm shopping around to find additional funds. I would say that it'd be a more secure way to say I would have it if I need it. So if everybody was agreeable to that, I could state it that way to them, because I don't want to send them down the wrong road and we don't have it when we need it.
Okay,
I would
chief.
support that, yeah.
Yes. All right, and then I think we can move forward with that then. And I'm waiting for them to send me the pricing and I can provide you with that when I receive it. Because I asked for all 3 of these to be priced out, just to make sure we were gonna be able to get in front of the line on this if we.
I mean,
We
the
have the
3
opportunity.
intersections you name make perfect sense, have one on each end and one in the middle, so.
Well, the
whole
reason
plan makes sense.
The reason obviously for the one on Morrow and Ardmore would be the parkway's right there. That's the intersecting road. That's where people travel. They go to Wilkinsburg. There's a lot of traffic flow there. Yost Boulevard is a very busy intersection. It also provides traffic for both of our shopping centers, where if there were to be a crime that would occur there, we'd probably see them there. And Braddock and Ardmore, there's a lot of traffic that comes down there because there's a lot of school buses, for example, that come down that way from the high school where, if they get involved in something, at least we'd be able to see how it happened instead of trying to guess. It would certainly help us with that. And sadly, a lot of people tend to flee these days. They don't just hit your car and stop and give you the information. They just keep going. So again, it would be a great asset for us to have those things here, and even better if we get most of it paid for by someone else. And I mean, these cameras are everywhere now. They have them in many roadways. to help with these kind of situations. And a state road like
We look
ours,
into it.
Okay,
you know, it's an important road that they would want to help us with, I think.
okay, we'll move on to the next item, pedestrian safety. We discussed this the last time. We talked about lighting on Ardmore Boulevard between Braddock and Newport. That's on the continuous sidewalk that we have. And at that time, I talked about either there would be the pole lighting or perhaps the bollard type lighting. Those would be the short lighting structures. These would be solar powered. We did get a quote for what one or two of those would cost. I didn't bring that in front of me tonight. But what I would like to do is move ahead and buy 3 of them so that we can test. This was at the recommendation of several of you to do that, as well as Mr. Abrams. I'd like to do that to see how much lighting it would throw and whether or not it would be worth pursuing it for the remainder of the length of the Ardmore. Mr. Bacon.
Sorry, I thought we were discussing between Braddock and the other direction going along past the park and everything, not
Yeah,
Newport.
I read what was on here. It is from Newport to Fillmore.
I replaced the wrong word.
Okay, and the second comment, I did not appreciate just how dark that section was until driving home after our previous meeting, and I think this is a very excellent idea to have a creative solution to the pedestrian lighting issue there.
Hildinger.
I still think it's a budget issue, like, we need to know how much it costs, you know, like, buying 3 doesn't do us any good if it's, first of all, like, 2 questions, I think we talked about last time, you know, if it's sold, it has to be totally independent from Duquesne Light, otherwise we have to pay like, I don't know how much money. a month.
They are solar powered.
I just want to make sure it's clear, we have no connection to Duquesne Light, it's completely independent, and that we know what we have to pay, like, you said you don't know the pricing, how much?
We budgeted, again, and it should be in the budget, $20,000 for 2024 and estimated another 20 for 2025. And what we would do is buy the appropriate number of lights to correspond to that amount. It would be an ongoing project.
And
We need 3 quotes.
Yes.
Okay, if we can get that,
If
then
we're
I
going
think
to
we'll
do
be
the whole,
able to.
well, if we need to do the whole project. But if we want to just test a couple of lights, I'm not sure that we need to do that.
I think our manager is actually going to work on the capital improvement budget going forward. It's, what we have is more like a wish list because it's actually underfunded. So if you have every line item in our capital, you know, you can't argue because it's public safety, it is in the capital improvement budget, but the whole budget, if you go all the way down from the top down, is underfunded. So even if it is in our budget, it's actually a misleading name, it's a wish list.
Well, that's why I asked Mr. Abrams to check to make sure that we could fund this before I brought it up. Mr. Abrams.
So on the financial side, for 3 of them that Mr. Baoki sent me was under $900, I believe. It was definitely under 1,000. So that price wise to see if they work is not a concern. I did have a couple of concerns that I reached out to the sales rep about the installation to make sure that they would be secure, because at their height of 27.5 inches, they're certainly a desirable plaything. And to make sure that they would be secure enough for pedestrians or other people who want to walk past and bump it, but obviously break away if a vehicle were to hit it. But also to check on the lighting pattern, because the booklet says 120 degrees, which would light the sidewalk, but the pictures that go with it show a 365 degree. And my concern is obviously at 27.5 inches, if it's hitting the road, we'd at least want to have the engineers involved to make sure that that's not a height or that it's hitting low enough that it's not going to affect drivers. I've not heard back from the sales rep.
Yeah, I think that he sent one for the pole lighting. And that might have been, I don't know if that was the one that you were confused with, or was that what?
All you sent me was the one for the for the 27.5 inch bollard.
Okay, I'll have to look again.
Yeah, and
see.
it's actually in the pamphlet, it shows a 365 and then it says 120. So their picture shows 365 bollard and I was like, want to know if it was an option or if it's one or the other.
Okay, thanks. Mr.
Are
DeCruz.
we talking about installing them on the north side or the south side of that sidewalk? So near the park or near the road?
It depends on what Mr. Abrams finds out. If it can be installed away from the road, it would be better.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
If we're right near the park shining, if it is a 365, it would actually shine into the stone wall on one side. Because I thought we were talking about having all those originally in the grass strip between,
Well, there's a strip on
which is
both
where-
sides. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a strip on both sides, which is why.
in some
Near the
areas.
wall as well.
Yeah, when you get real close to the wall, it gets.
Yeah, yeah. I just think about cars hitting.
Well, which was the original concern.
That's one of the reasons why we want to get them, take a look at them, see how they can be positioned. There may be a lens adjustment so that it,
Right, so
instead of
it's not
360, you
wasting.
only have the
Right,
120.
and that's why I've simply asked him to provide me those specs.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think my mind's eye view of what this was and what the products are actually doing is starting to diverge more and more. And I would definitely like to see the product brochure, example, or whatever it is itself before we make any decisions.
Are we better served maybe contacting? Are we better served contacting Duquesne Light? And maybe this is. Idea is good. So the lighting is, and I don't disagree. I do think that lighting is a concern there. My concern becomes kids walking by and doing what kids do, right? Which is kick it or, horse around or whatever it is, or hey, I'm gonna take this home as a gag. Cars potentially hitting it. If we perhaps need better lighting in that area, maybe we contact Duquesne Light and ask for an installation of 1 or 2 headlights. Because at their brightness, maybe 1 or 2 strategically placed street lights kind of give that area the coverage. And it also solves for the, we're gonna be replacing these things every 30 to 45 days because they either get, damaged or what have you.
Would that be of any cost to us?
Yes,
It
it
will.
would be.
We will incur
So-
costs for that for sure.
So with these bollards, they would be solar, they would be, no charge to us, other than the purchase. They should be, I'm not sure about the installation, but I would imagine they're set in concrete. So if somebody's pulling them out, I would like to enter them into the strongman contest. But,
No, they
but
won't.
I
they won't
understand
pull-
what you're saying. They're gonna,
If they're sunk in concrete, probably not. Will they make off with the actual light fixture itself? Possibly, I'm just thinking about the worst case scenarios is just something to
but
consider.
there's a lot of, if you drive around either Pittsburgh or any other city, you'll see a lot of these bollard lightings in a lot of these areas. You go down to the PPG paints, they have those lighted bollards as well. So it's a possibility. I think we owe it to ourselves to take a look at that, to try to help with the lighting. Mr. Erlinger.
I agree with Frank. If we actually can modify the existing Duquesne light, the projection of those street lights to cover the sidewalk, there shouldn't be any extra cost besides changing the lens or whatever they have up there. I just simply can't believe that something like that costs $900, including battery, solar. It just doesn't seem to be rugged enough for public use. But
Well, those are commercial lights, what we're talking about.
$900
And just so I clarify what you're saying that the street lights that they have now, which are in the median, are going to shine onto the
I think we can
sidewalk.
change the angle, so it shouldn't cost us any extra money besides the one-time fee to change the lens or whatever they have.
That would be good, except that there are, if you go down, wait until it gets real dark, and see how many lights there are. There would not, in my opinion, just my opinion, there would not be enough lights there now to light the sidewalk sufficiently. It would just be, there's a distance requirement in order to light a sidewalk. So you have to go so many feet and a pole, so many feet in a pole. I don't think that would cover it, but it's worth asking. Mr.
Excuse me for doing this abrupt change, but I had a question for Chief Corella before he left. Can you give us an update on the PFAS forever chemicals in the fire department?
For the
Forever chemicals in the uniforms, and if we have any
Yeah,
liquids?
we're still working on that. We're coming up with new bid specs for our protective clothing. The foam that we mentioned is all pretty much gone. The last of it we got contained. I'm gonna get rid of that in the next couple weeks. Somewhere I can dispose of it properly. And then that foam will be gone, but we still have it in our protective clothing. So that, once we come up with a new bid spec, and I got some vendors coming in to show us some new type of gear that we can get away from the PFAS in our protective clothing.
Okay, perhaps we can talk and see if there's any government offices nearby that might be able to give us some additional funding for that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be looking around too. There's some different grant programs that we can apply for, but we'll do that.
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Bianchi?
Yes.
So I think the question is, people want to see the brochure. So when you start getting quotes you could show us this, it would help people with the funding.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll intend to work with Mr. Abrams and we'll get the quote. We'll try to contact Duquesne Light to see what they have to say.
Yeah, let's get the
And we'll try to
comparative.
satisfy everybody's concerns here before we continue to move forward.
Is there a website we could look at?
It wouldn't have the information with the brochures.
Okay.
I don't think.
Can I just add one clarification point?
Certainly.
I just didn't want there to be any misunderstanding. What I'm advocating for is just what you said. Let's do a compare analysis, right? But I don't think the problem is going to get solved by angling the existing. I actually want to add new lights on the westbound side of Ardmore that will actually shine lights down on the actual sidewalk outside the park area, et cetera. So I don't think angling the existing lights are going to solve that problem. It's not going to throw enough light.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do that analysis, I think we just need to ensure that we're comparing the appropriate cost, because installing a new set of lights on that side, angling the lights.
It would be.
So just
And just so you know, I looked at the pole lighting and they were solar powered too. So we could go with solar, wouldn't involve Duquesne Light. But the solar pole lighting is much more expensive than using the bollards. But we can get the cost on those too. And then see, and then if it's only we do, a couple 100 feet this year or next year and continue on that way, that might make sense. Okay, let's move on. Speed hump installation. This is primarily just for informational. I know the speed humps were installed on Cascade. It appears that one location was missing. There was a speed hump that was to be installed on Cascade as it curves around the other side. And there wasn't one there. There are also no signs, as they are supposed to be, that say speed hump. So that's a requirement as well. Also, I will be working on a policy. I've gotten other requests for speed humps in other locations. So I'm going to put together a policy and share it with everyone for comments and so forth. So we have a process and a procedure for residents to request speed humps in their neighborhoods. Next item, again, just informational, school bus stop sign review. I did get the current bus stop schedule from Forest Hill, Woodland Hills School District. Comparing that to the signs that we already have up, it appears that we need one additional sign to be added. I will again work with Mr. Abrams to get that completed. And then finally, fire hydrant maintenance. I brought this up last year. The Wilkins Penn Joint Water Authority is very reluctant to provide any information. We had to get our attorney involved in order to get that last year. Once again, we need to have some information on fire hydrant maintenance. I would like them to provide the records to show that they've actually done the maintenance that they're supposed to be doing. It's a very important item. There have been other communities where firefighters have gone to open up the fire hydrants and found that they don't have any water. So I want to know that this is being done. So again, I will work with Mr. Abrams to get those records from the Water Authority. And unless there's any questions, Mr. Erbaldinger?
Last month, we talked about the usage of the spare police car. Did we move that to Cow next week, or like, I think the chief was supposed to do some research on that, how much money we
Mr.
spent?
Abrams was also, somebody was supposed to report on mileage and use like that.
It's not on the list today. Is it like for next week, I guess?
I have the data in my office and can get it for you in about 3 seconds, but I do know.
Give it to Kyle.
I do know the actual cost was under $1,500 for the over the past 18 months for that vehicle for maintenance, fuel, and use.
You also have to know mileage.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I can attest to the use of that vehicle firsthand. I did have occasion to encounter a police stop with the unmarked vehicle. And that worked out very well. So just to let you know. So it is
I'm glad you're on already.
It's being used, yes.
How much was your citation?
I have to do community service.
All right, I have a quick question, please. If, can I'd like to lobby the committee to place something on the agenda for next month's meeting. I've been noticing in my travels, a substantial amount of parking in alleys. And it's not like, it's like almost double parking where half the lane in the alleys are being blocked. So I've got a couple of concerns about that. Number one, police and emergency vehicles. Sometimes people will use the alleys to access the back of their home, and it's the easiest way to get to an emergency. Secondly, during the wintertime, snow plowing and whatnot. I mean, we're creating scenarios here where either cars are going to get snowed in, like just plowed in, I should say, or quite frankly, create a scenario where we're going to be paying money because of our plows damaging vehicles, because when we're out plowing, those roads are still pretty darn slippery. So we already have a policy in place about our streets. On heavy snow days, cars are supposed to be off the streets, especially in cul-de-sacs, et cetera. I'd like to just review what our policies are to discuss whether or not we should be doing the same thing in the alleyways. I'm not sure if this is public works or public safety. It kind of straddles both, but if we could please put it on the appropriate committee for discussion. It should be a pretty easy lift. It's just basically replicating the policy we have right now for our streets and just making sure that people understand it. Taking these efforts to, correct these issues on our main thoroughfares like main streets, we should be doing the same thing.
As part of that, we did have a policy recently about parking on sidewalks. So we should include that as well in the discussion.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just passing on a significant amount of feedback I've gotten from people regarding the speed humps. Just walking around the neighborhood, universally positive feedback. I think we should strongly expect that we're going to get a lot of requests for those. And I don't know about the budgeting time, whether we want to think about it next year, having just had the winter to get like the full experience or not. But certainly next year or the year after, I expect we'll be striving to do a lot of new traffic control devices.
One of the things, which would be good to get the policy in place now, is as we are doing, road paving, if one of those roads, winds up being a request, it would be better to put in a permanent speed hump as opposed to the temporary. So, there's a couple of things we could do with that as well. Thank you. If there's nothing else, that concludes public safety.
Okay, and that looks like the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We will have that executive session.